Good morning, everybody. Merry Wednesday. There's a wonderful Yiddish expression which translates to, before I speak, I want to say a few words. So in that spirit, I just want to finish up our discussion about the origins of Hanukkah and how it plays out. And I just want to refer you to the prayer that we're all going to be saying starting tonight, the Al Hanisim prayer. As we pointed out, the story of Hanukkah is primarily a civil war between the traditional Jews and the assimilationist Hellenistic Jews, who basically turned the temple into a base of Avodah Zarah. And that was the struggle. Ultimately, they left Jerusalem, they rebelled, and the Syrian Greek soldiers were called in to put down the rebellion. This is reflected, if you look very carefully, in the words of the Al Hanisim prayer. And the rabbis had difficulty dealing with the fact that it was a military victory as well as a spiritual victory. And it's reflected in the prayers. I mean, we talk about the salvation and the all the miracles that took place and the victories. Let's look at the words. All right, and that the Hashmonai family and the sons, when the Syrian Greeks were called in to put down the rebellion, and what were they trying to do? To make the Hashkicham Torah Secho Laharvirem Sanecha. This can be interpreted both ways. Not only did the Greeks want them to forget Torah, but the assimilationists wanted to Lahaviram, to take them away from their observances. And you Amarto Lahem Be'ez Torah Sam. So Hashem came and saved them. Okay. Marsarta Giborim Biyad Chaloshim can be interpreted two ways. The Giborim could have been the soldiers, or the Giborim, those who were steadfast in their emunah, biyad chaloshim, those who were weak in their faith. Rabim biyad bi'atim, okay, the many in the hands of the few. Tameim biyad tahorim, those who debased themselves were delivered into the hands of those who were firm in their belief in Torah. Now, yeah, you can argue both ways when it refers to the soldiers, but now the words are very, very important. Rishaim biyad tzadikim. The word Russia is applied to a Jew more than to a non-Jew. The Rishoyim were given over to those who were called tzaddikim. Zaydim is an even stronger term. How do they translate Zaydim here? Wanton or wicked into the hands of Oskei Torah Secha. All right, and you made this wonderful the victory, etc. And afterwards, they came to the temple, they cleansed it, they purified it. Now here's an important line. If you remember the story of the 8 spears that we talked about. How do you translate that? They kindled the menorah, for want of a better term, in the courtyards, of your holy place. Where was the menorah placed? The menorah was inside, in the heichal, not outside in the courtyard, where they found those spears that they made into the first menorah. So if you look very carefully, even in the tefillos, there are hints to the story that we were talking about. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out to you because we do start saying that tefillah today, and it has very important levels of meaning if you know what to look for. Okay. Today's topic, Hanukkah guilt. Where did that custom come from? How important the custom is it? Is it a Jewish custom? Did we copy it from the Goyim? Perhaps. So what I try to do, and the Rav Soloveitchik was a very big believer in trying to understand minhagim. A minhag just doesn't, I mean, there are some minhagim that are nonsense minhagim that develop. But there are some minhagim that are based in halacha, at least conceptually, if not in practice. So with that in mind, I want to analyze, at the beginning at least, where Hanukkah geld come from. The first question we have to ask ourselves, and Hanukkah is a post-biblical holiday. It's not one of the Shalosh Regalim. It's a post-biblical holiday like Purim. Is there first of all, is Hanukkah considered a yontif? Quasi-yontif. I mean, you could do malacha, but it's a semi-yontif, if you will. Is there a halacha of simchas yontif on Hanukkah? Every holiday has simcha attached to it. Halachically, is Hanukkah a yontif sufficiently enough of a yontif to engender simchas yontif? And how does the Gemara define simchas yontif? So you have to buy your wife nice trinkets, jewelry, and also give out goodies to the kids. The Gemara talks about how do you enhance yontif. And in terms of children, you give them, you know, in the kind of the Gemara, nuts and parched corn, but you give them goodies to eat, basically. And the only halacha that we know of, in the Gemara at least, is that on Hanukkah there's no hesped, there's no tanis, which is also a hallmark of a yontif. That you don't have fasting and you don't have hespedim on yontif. So the Rambam notes that Hanukkah are days of simcha and hallel, and these are two really separate ideas. Simcha, there's no strict halacha to be misameach on Hanukkah, but if it's a yontif, you would have that element there as well. And therefore, you can't engage in any activities that might take away from the simcha. But there may not be an obligation of simchas yontif on Hanukkah, according to the Rambam, according to what some people interpret it.
So every Chag, and also including a Purim, right? We always have Suda.
Because Purim, the Megillah specifically tells you, Yom Mishta v'Simcha. It tells you to have a Purim Suda.
Why don't we do that on Hanukkah?
We'll see. But on Hanukkah, being that it is a very late biblical holiday, it's in the time of the Beis Hamikdash already, there was no specific biblical, it's post-biblical. So there's no Purim is still part of Tanakh. Hanukkah is post-biblical, and being a post-biblical holiday, it doesn't have the same status, perhaps, as Purim, even though Hanukkah and Purim are usually grouped together. But what I'm trying to analyze from a halachic perspective, if there's a din of simcha on Hanukkah, how does it play out? And how do the Mefarshim take a look at it? Other achronim said there is an obligation of simcha, but there's no obligation of the physical aspect to bring about the simcha, technically. But if you do it to elicit simcha, then it's a fulfillment of the concept. Again, concept and din are two different things. Conceptually, yes, Hanukkah is a happy time. Is it a halachically happy mandate? That's up for debate. There are Rishonim who discuss this. The Maharam Rutenberg, one of the last Balei Tosfos, he says that having a Seudah, even though it's not mandatory, would be a fulfillment of Simcha on Hanukkah. Now, generally, we don't have we have Purim parties. We have we get get-togethers, family gets together, and the Hanukkah menorah lighting and so forth. But so that might be a kiyum of Simchas Hanukkah. It's interesting. Now, again, when we're dealing with halacha, the poskim are very analytical. So the Balaturim says Hanukkah is a day of Hallel and Hoda'ah, but not Mishta and Simcha. He makes a distinction there. The Marshal says it's like a Yontif, and there is a mitzvah to be festive on Hanukkah. Shulchan Aruch comes down on the side that says it's not a mitzvah to have a Seudah on Hanukkah. However, the Ramah, who codifies Ashkenazic practice, says that there is some fulfillment of a mitzvah if you do have a Hanukkah Seudah. There's a difference between a kiyum and a chiyuv. And I'm not getting too lumdish here for you, but a kiyum is a fulfillment versus an obligation. There's no technical obligation, but there is some type of fulfillment if you do it. Okay, that's the Ramah. And again, if we accept the concept that there is some type of simcha or fulfillment on Hanukkah, then, going back to the original Gemara, we should give treats to the children. And similar to other Yom Tovim, and if giving him gifts might be a fulfillment of this kiyum. Okay, now, how do we get from giving gifts to giving Hanukkah gelt? So, the Magen Avram, commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, that it was customary for poor children to go around to collect tzedakah on Hanukkah. And, since they're collecting with tzedakah, you give them a little bit extra too. The Belzer Rebbe says, no. You don't just give to the poor children, you give to all children. It's a fulfillment, again, of Simchas Purim by doing that. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, a 20th century posek, died in 1986. He says children used to give out, in most schools they still do this today, they give out little presents to teachers on Hanukkah, and the children would bring these presents to the teachers, and you'd call it shliach mitzvah geld. You'd give the children a little something for being your emissary to give the teacher a gift. And he also says, and this is not, it's very important, and a number of Achronim point this out, this is not an imitation of any other religions who give out presents on this holiday season, but we had it first, as Rabbi Yudin is one to say, that this goes back a long time. Now it's interesting, and this there is a reason. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky used to give out money to children on the 5th night of Hanukkah. The Steipler Gaon, died in 85, also gave out Hanukkah geld on the 5th night of Hanukkah. Why the 5th night? Manishtana. Why give out Hanukkah geld to children on the 5th night of Hanukkah? So he says, it's the only night of Hanukkah that can never come out on Shabbos. How we figured that out, I'm not quite sure, but it's true. Others trace it back much, much earlier, and not having the analytical perspective of Simchas Yontif on Hanukkah, but there are some Mefarshim who says this goes back to the actual story of Hanukkah, where during this period, as we know, Torah study was prohibited. So in order to encourage children to study Torah in secret, you used to have to bribe them. So they gave them coins or goodies to bribe them, according to one point of view. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says, he connects the words Chanukah to Chinuch, which is education, and by giving them treats to encourage them to learn is an important aspect of Chinuch, So he connects Chinuch and Hanukkah together, and that's why you should give a gift every day of Hanukkah to the children. That was Lubavitcher Rebbe. Another reason that's put forth, which is fascinating when you think of all the amount of mental energy that went into trying to understand this minhag. Another Hasidic Rebbe suggests that by giving monetary gifts to children, you are enhancing the celebration of the holiday. Hanukkah has no major expenses attached to it. So by spending a little bit of money, by giving out gifts to children and so forth, you are, in a certain sense, enhancing the holiday by spending money to observe the holiday. Again, these are different, the final interpretation, which I find historically very, very interesting. That normally during a war, what do the victors do? They distribute the loot among the soldiers. That happens in every military victory. When the Jews established their government after the Hashmonaim were victorious, and eventually they became semi-independent, a few generations later, Antiochus VII, who wasn't a bad guy, Antiochus VII allowed the Jews to mint their own coins, and we have some of these coins now. And the coins were given out to children to celebrate Hanukkah as a memento of the defeat of the Seleucidian and of the assimilationists. And that practice morphed into the notion of giving coins, giving money to children based on that initial practice, which is a fascinating historical reason that it's mentioned by historians, not necessarily by Mefarshim, but it's fascinating. And in 1958, the Bank of Israel actually started to mint commemorative coins for Hanukkah. Of course, the most important coin manufacturer is Barton's, the chocolate coins, which makes it a combination of two things. You're fulfilling the mitzvah of giving out coins, but it combines with the notion of giving out goodies to the kids so they can eat the coins. Others suggest that one of the reasons you gave out coins, small coins, chocolate or otherwise, is to use it to gamble with the dreidel, which is a whole other story. Perhaps for next Hanukkah, we'll talk about where the dreidel came from, whether it's Jewish initially. No, it wasn't initially Jewish, but in any event, this is some of the background. But again, just to summarize, number one, we try to analyze this from a halachic perspective, whether or not there's a din of simcha on a post-biblical holiday such as Hanukkah, and how we fulfill that mitzvah of simcha by giving out goodies to children. And then the historical development of where coins came from, whether bribing the children or simply a way of enjoying Simchas HaChag. But it's a fascinating debate, which I don't know what is the correct answer, but we have a number of options to choose from. So if you have children or grandchildren, make sure you give them Hanukkah gelt. It doesn't have to be on the 5th night, it could be every night. And hopefully they'll have a good dreidel spin. Any questions on that? Okay. Nathan, you're muted.
Have a Freilich Hanukkah.
Freilich Hanukkah, everybody.
Freilich Hanukkah. Thank you.
Mustikin, yes, question.
Do you have just a moment to touch on the dreidel source?
It's a medieval German custom that they used to spin dreidels on many, many different occasions. They made it into a Hanukkah thing. There are some legends that maybe this, when they were studying Torah and the Greek Syrians came by, they took out their tops to make believe they were playing games and not learning Torah. There are many, many different explanations for it. In all probability, it's a medieval German custom that kind of morphed It's just, in general, when you're studying customs, there's a transmigration, if you will, a sharing from different cultures, and sometimes people forget the origin of some customs, some of which may not even be Jewish, and it became a Jewish custom. But that's for another time, perhaps.
Wally,
Yes.
I want to make sure I got the message correctly. Giving gelt, according to some, is better than giving another type of present.
Yes.
Now, so by gelt, any money, in other words, instead of buying, let's say, your grandchild a game, give him $10. That's
Yes.
better than the game. Because
Yes.
that's
Yes.
okay.
What game are you buying
That
for
go-
$10, Milty?
I forget about, I just gave an example. Now, this idea of giving to children also apply to your adult married children with children?
That's an interesting question. Again, anything that enhances joy on Hanukkah would be fine. So if by giving money or gifts to your adult children increases the simchas hachag, then you should do it. You don't have to do it, but you certainly may. I mean, again, this goes back to the discussion: is there a din of simcha on Hanukkah?
No, we always do it. To our
Okay,
children
then keep
and
on-
our grandchildren. But
Then keep
is
on
it
doing
better?
it.
Is it better for the adult children, instead of buying something for the house, giving them money? Is giving money better than a?
Give them a gift card
Let's go back.
and let them buy what they want.
Yeah, that's what we wind up doing because they never tell us what they want.
That's right.
Okay, gotcha.
Freilich and Hanukkah, everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Jay, I'll give you more than $10, Jay.
Thank
You're
you.
right.
Rabbi Stuman, Rabbi Sign of Orech, Yishem Nevarach Metav Yad Olam, B'Shus Kol B'Subin Kan, V'Orech Shechal Mishalot, Rosh Chal Mishlot, V'Chayinu, V'Chaton, V'Mezl Mazones, Swollen Klov Lohim, B'Chetz Rach, V'Hunos Elechem, V'Chol B'Sor Kiyul Am Chasto, V'Ushtuvo HaGadol, Tomid L'Chal Chayim, Ki hu el zon u'fanes lakol, mitiv lakol, michin mazon l'chol b'yasol v'asher baro, v'ruchato Adonai azon es hakol. V'ruchato Adonai al ha'oretz v'al hamazon. Uvnei Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh V'Hera V'Yameinu V'Ruchato Adonai B'Nei B'Rachamo V'Yerushalayim. Amen. Umikol Tov Yolam Hayachasreinu. That would be a great question. Can I include the people in a Zoom who are listening in?
What's the same deal we used to have the young on Zoom?
Yeah,
You can dial along, but you can't be counted.
that was the same question.
Yeah, I don't.
You do Baruch or Kedusha
I think you
on
can
a
answer.
Zoom menu.
I think you can answer, but you can't be counted for.
But let's say with everybody on Zoom, it makes a minion. So can you do Dvarim Shem Kedusha that way? I have to look it up.
I don't think so.
And that the question was raised, I remember.
All 10 people have to be in the same rishus.
Yeah, that's it, 'cause-
Or you can have 10 people in a courtyard.
So this is the